my name is Greg Nelson. I'm the owner of Nelson Construction and Renovations here in Clearwater, Florida. And today we're going to talk about the design build process that we do, specifically the feasibility step that we do, which is kind of the first little step in our design build service. Some of the things that we need from the client in order to do this properly is we're going to need to have an idea of what it is you want to do. It's very helpful to have a property survey. If you can't find your property survey, sometimes it's with the deed with your house. Most municipalities require the survey to be less than 5 years old. So if you don't have one, we can totally help you get one. We have vendors that do those, or you can get it done yourself and bring that in. Also, any kind of zoning stuff, we can check that out. Setbacks, we'll check that out. Usually the boundary survey, your property survey is also a boundary survey that shows the boundary. On a boundary survey of your property, which is a survey showing the property line, let's say that this piece of paper represents the rectangular boundary of your property. Let's just, for argument's sake, say it's a blank lot and you want to build a new house. Part of our feasibility study goes over setbacks. It could also be an existing house, like my hand could be the existing house. And we're maybe adding on some square footage to the house. So at the end of the day, the piece of paper is the boundary, and then the setbacks are usually invisible lines around the edges of the property, which are what the city says you can't encroach into. On most properties, you have a 5-foot setback from the edges from the sides of the property, which means, let's say you're doing a new house, what you design can't go within that. Or if you're adding on to the house, what you're adding on can't go within that setback line. So let's say the setback was here, your house can't go over here. It has to stop right before it or come further over or whatever. Your front and your rear setbacks are usually different. If you have a corner lot, there's usually a larger setback. Sometimes it can be as much as 30 feet. Your boundary survey is also going to show easements, which could be like a utility easement. There might be a whole bunch of piping and stuff that the city has running here, and there's a city ordinance that won't let you build on top of it because they need to be able to access it. Well, part of that feasibility study is the builder making sure that what we're about to design to go on this lot is actually going to be allowable from those standpoints. Setbacks, we're not over any utility easements. When it comes to actually doing the building review of the construction drawings, those guys are just reviewing to make sure that everything that we're going to build that's on those plans is meeting building code. There's no way that they can disapprove those plans to be built on that lot. They would just say, revise it to say this. But the initial feasibility study, why that's so important, is because if you've designed something, the planners that actually do the building construction review later on might say, yeah, that's great, you can build it. But the zoning guys will say, sorry, you can't build that house here because you're encroaching into the setback or going over a utility easement or something like that. Those are simple examples, but there's actually quite a bit more that we do and we check on the feasibility study. So the feasibility study, we're going to need your property survey. We're going to need all these sorts of things. If it's a house that's below the BFE, we'll use the tax appraiser website, has the appraisal on the house, so we can, figure out how much monetary improvements are they going to allow on this house. Previous to the storm, we recommended that people get a new appraisal done. You can hire a private appraiser to come, and he uses a different cost approach to try to get the value up ethically within what's allowable. And generally people have a little bit more money to then use to do more improvements on that house, even though it's below the floodplain. Unfortunately, with all these houses that were trashed by the storm surge and such, I wouldn't recommend getting another property appraisal done because it'll probably won't be worth as much as it was before. So we kind of have to default to the tax appraiser one if you want to do improvements at that point. All right, good. So so I'll talk about ADUs, for example, a little bit here. An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. This would be, got some older houses in St. Pete with a garage and maybe a livable suite up on top with some steps going up to it. It's a separate building from the primary structure, from the main house. These are called ADUs. Some people, they want to renovate their ADUs. Some people want to build an ADU. In order to do an ADU, if this is something that's needed and wanted by the client, then this is something that we would also do in our feasibility step. Because some municipalities don't allow ADUs, some do. If you're renovating one, there's rules on that. There's a lot more that could be said about it. You've even got the FEMA rule that gets integrated into the ADU and these sorts of things. We've even had people that wanted to add on, we're actually doing one right now where we're adding square footage on a house. And so they're making a separate suite for the father, but it's connected structurally to the main house. So it's technically not an ADU, right? But then they wanted to have a kitchen, and you can't have two kitchens. There's a lot of rules and a lot of things with ADUs. We did one project where the client wanted to have a main house and then wanted to have another house for his business clients to come in. Technically, it was an ADU. It was all on the same property. It was a big property, and the county wouldn't allow it because the rule is with that is you can't have the ADU be greater than 750 square feet or more than 50% of the primary structure. And this puppy was about 3,000 square feet. So because we're a design build and we've done this a lot, we found ourselves a way to get through it. And what we did was we proposed a 90-foot long covered walkway. They were actually quite liked it at the end, even though it cost a lot extra to added to the budget. But we structurally connected the roof line of the walkway to the two houses, and then we just called the rear house the rear wing, and the front house the main wing or whatever. And then the pool went in the middle, and they had a nice walkway to get to the two. So essentially, we built a ginormous ADU with a connected walkway. Some cities have some loopholes and gray areas that you can get around, so you can do that. But there is some definite rules that you have to conform to. So if we know that the client wants to do an ADU, or have a family member move in and have a separate suite or whatever, there is some work that needs to be done. There's some time on the job to figure those things out. That all gets done in the feasibility as well. And it kind of moves into the schematics at that point. So yeah, that's a fairly general overview of what a feasibility study is and how we do it. I'm Greg Nelson. I'm the owner of Nelson Construction. And if you have any more questions, feel free to call, set up a meeting, and we're happy to bring you through the whole process. And thanks for watching.